Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CANTO Conversations. My name is Teresa Wankin, and I'm your moderator this morning. Our guest speakers, Dr. Marta Suarez, President of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, and Dr. Lester Garcia, Head of Connectivity Policy, LATAM at Facebook. Dr. Suarez has over 15 years of experience in the telecommunications industry. Prior to joining the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, she spent over 3 years as General Director of the National Spectrum Agency in Colombia. Dr. Suarez was also involved in the Partnership for Cognitive Radio project and has worked at EastCom Research Center on wireless transmitter architectures. Dr. Garcia, he has well over 20 years of experience in telecom regulations and policy in Latin America. He is a former public policy consultant and practitioner, having served as Chief of Regulatory Policy at COFTEL. He has also been a researcher and professor in economics and public policy for different schools and universities in Mexico. Folks, this morning we are honored to have two dynamic speakers with us, and I'm expecting that you will use this opportunity to engage their knowledge and expertise to answer some of your very own questions. Please post questions in the chat. Marta, Lester, welcome to CANTO Conversations. We are delighted to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Teresa, for the kind invite.
Okay, so we're going to start with Marta, and Marta will share a slide. Your questions, you can post your questions in the chat. We will try to get through most of them or even all of them in the time allotted. After Marta's presentation, we'll go straight on to Lester's, and then we will start taking questions. Okay, so Marta, you can start sharing your slide.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm sharing my presentation there.
Great, yes.
I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Okay. So it's my pleasure to be here today with all of you. Thank you very much for this invite. And I will talk about Wi-Fi 6 and what we can expect in terms of wireless innovation, especially with the unlicensed access to the 6 gigahertz band. So I was already introduced. Thank you for that. Here you can find our social media accounts, so you can follow the DSA and you can follow also all the messages that we are posting about dynamic spectrum access. So the DSA, for those of you that haven't heard of it, it's a global association, non-for-profit, and our main task is advocacy. We are promoting efficient use of the spectrum, and that's because we think that that is a way to increase connectivity and to promote innovation. So why is the spectrum sharing so important today? There are many arguments. I will take a few of them for this presentation. One is that because it's a crucial part of the ecosystem for 5G. So unlicensed access to the spectrum and dynamic spectrum sharing is important to enable 5G. One example is the CBRS framework that was created in the US, and that has provided access, dynamic spectrum access to the 3.5 gigahertz band in the US. Dynamic spectrum sharing access and spectrum sharing is also important to connect wireless devices and for IoT. There are many, many devices that are being used now, and that is going to increase in time. So dynamic spectrum access is a way to find new spectrum for these kind of devices, and also to make them affordable so we could have economies of scale. We also think that dynamic spectrum access is very important to supercharge the technologies like Wi-Fi 6. Just an important information: about half of internet traffic originates or terminates on Wi-Fi. So it's time also to think about what is going to be the next generation of Wi-Fi and how are we going to prepare for that. Let me please present this very short video. You can see it. I hope you can see it now.
It's difficult to imagine a day without Wi-Fi. At home, Wi-Fi unites our growing number of connected devices. On the go, Wi-Fi offloads a majority of cellular data traffic. Workplaces rely on it for telepresence and productivity. Airports and airlines use it as a tool for vital operations. Schools rely on Wi-Fi to deliver students online coursework and bring new educational tools such as virtual reality learning. Factories utilize it to track efficiency and revolutionize manufacturing. Rural and low-income communities benefit from Wi-Fi's high capacity and affordable connectivity. Wi-Fi delivers connectivity that is central to our daily lives. It powers our world today while contributing more than $2 trillion to the global economy each year. Wi-Fi's role in our lives will grow as it continues to connect next-generation applications and provides critical capacity for 5G networks. The world runs on Wi-Fi. Could you imagine a day without it? Learn more at widefi.org.
So this is a video from the Wi-Fi Alliance, and I think we are all experiencing the increase in the demand for Wi-Fi. It has been during the last years, and now with the COVID-19 crisis, I think it has also reinforced that need that we are feeling, because most of us are accessing internet through Wi-Fi at home. So what can we expect from Wi-Fi 6E? So Wi-Fi 6 is the next generation of Wi-Fi. It's already certified. I mean, there is already a certification for that since last year. And even many smartphones and devices are already including chipsets of Wi-Fi 6. The difference with Wi-Fi 6E is that Wi-Fi 6E is the standard that is able to use the 6 gigahertz frequency band. And there is a crucial difference with the other one, is that for many of the applications that we could expect with Wi-Fi 6E, we need more spectrum. So we need larger channel bandwidths. And we are talking here about 160 megahertz bandwidth. And that increase, that is a key aspect of why we can expect better performance. So with Wi-Fi 6E, we are targeting gigabit speeds, high data rates with 160 megahertz channels and 8 spatial streams. We could have about 10 gigabits per second of data rate. So it's 9.6, but it's a very, very high data rate. We can also expect extremely low latency, especially compared to the previous generations of Wi-Fi. And that's a reason why we can have many new use cases that we are going to describe lately. We can also have more capacity in the networks, more connected device. Wi-Fi 6E is a standard that is able to manage different devices connected at the same time and provide better performance to all of them, to each of them. And there is also an important aspect about energy efficiency. So with Wi-Fi 6, we can handle, it's possible to handle different devices. And when they are not accessing the spectrum, they can just go to sleep. And that way they can save batteries, and that's a very more efficient standard. There are also improvements in terms of security, and in general, it's like it opens the possibilities for many new applications. So let me talk a little bit about those new applications. So there are 3 kinds of devices or operating classes that we could expect in the 6 gigahertz band with unlicensed access. The first one is very low powered. So these devices are those that, as its names indicates, that they are very short range, but they can handle a lot of capacity. So we can imagine, for example, in this case, the glasses that we can use for virtual reality or for augmented reality. So we could have a very high throughput and a very immersive experience with those devices. And that would be very useful for education, for training, for manufacturing, and also for entertainment. We could also imagine for very low power devices, those that could be used in a car. So we can expect that the car is connected to a mobile network, but all the elements inside the car that require high capacity could be handled with this unlicensed access. So it could be a way to manage different screens or different devices inside the car. So that's just to provide some examples of what we could have in this case. These very low power devices should be able to be used indoors and outdoors. The second kind of devices is low power indoor devices. So this is like, we can imagine the evolution of Wi-Fi networks that we use at home or in companies or in public places like libraries, hospitals, etc. So these are Wi-Fi networks with more capacity, with much better performance, as I was mentioning before with Wi-Fi 6E. And the third type of devices is standard power devices. So these could operate outdoors and indoors with higher power compared to the previous classes. And this is useful, for example, in an airport, on the beach, because you could have like an open space network. It could be also for a university campus. And this could be also useful for ISPs that are providing internet in some places that don't have any coverage right now. So basically those ISPs are using 2.4 or 5.8 gigahertz. So now they could have more spectrum for those connections. These kind of devices would need to coexist with the incumbents in the band. So an AFC, an automated frequency system that is controlling the access to the spectrum, should be implemented to allow their usage. So what is the key to get access to all those important use cases? The key is the spectrum, as it usually is, and the request that the DSA, and I mean our advocacy actions are promoting to have unlicensed access to the 6 gigahertz band. And when we talk about that band, is from 5925 megahertz to 7125 megahertz. That means 7 channels of 160 megahertz. And in that distribution, basically low power indoors and very low power devices can coexist with incumbent services in the band. And standard power devices can coexist, but they would need an automated frequency coordination system to protect the incumbents in the band. We think, and I was requested to talk about how is it related to 5G. So we think that unlicensed access is a key part of the 5G strategy. And all these operating classes that I just described will contribute to the 5G ecosystem. I think you have all seen about 5G. A key enabler of 5G will be the video. I mean, there will be a huge consumption of video and virtual reality and augmented reality applications. We are convinced that Wi-Fi can support part of that ecosystem and handle part of that, of those applications. This is a screenshot from the FCC 5G Fast Plan, and I like to present it because it shows clearly that in terms of a spectrum, we need high band spectrum, mid band spectrum, low band spectrum, and unlicensed spectrum. This is a key part of the ecosystem, and that's how the FCC recognizes it, and that is why they have established a report and order in unlicensed access to the 6 gigahertz band. One important aspect is the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is ready. Wi-Fi 6 is already standardized, and Wi-Fi 6E devices are expected to be available in the market by the end of this year, by Christmas. So we expect a fast adoption once the regulators adopt the framework to allow unlicensed access to the 6 gigahertz band. And Wi-Fi is the proof of the importance of global harmonization. I mean, the costs are very low compared with other technologies, and the reason for that is because there is a global adoption on that. And at the end, those that get the most benefit from that are the final users. So, summarize somehow, we think that unlicensed access to this band is a more efficient use of the spectrum, ensures that existing incumbent services can continue to thrive in the band, And we think that all incumbents are important. It's not about mobile over satellite or fixed links over satellite. In this case, we could have a coexistence with satellite services in the band, with fixed links, and with Wi-Fi would be on the top of that, like provide with that unlicensed access. It's a way to attend the growing demand for wireless capacity, high throughput, higher capacity, more connected devices, more coverage. And that would be a way to do it now because the standard is ready, equipment are ready, and we wouldn't have to wait for many years to have that promise of those high throughputs. It's also a way to promote innovation and many new use cases. And I'm sure that there will be many applications for the Caribbean countries on how to use augmented reality, virtual reality, and how to use all these use cases and high throughputs. And there will be also a way to allow WISP to deploy gigabit class networks. So our message to regulators is that they should prepare for Wi-Fi 6E. They should do it now, and because the requirements and the needs are now. And many countries understood that this is not an or decision between parties. It's part of the 5G strategy. And we have some references right now. So a framework that is established and decided in the US. UK also has recently announced their releasing the band, the lower part of the band, because in Europe they started studying only the lower part of the band, and we hope that they will move to the upper part soon. There are open consultations right now in South Korea. Taiwan just closed their deadline, and we also expect to have some news from Brazil very soon. So that concludes my presentation. The DSA organizes a summit every year. So this year it will be the first week of November. We are still not sure if we can make it a face-to-face event, but I just would like to invite you to save the date in your calendars, and we would love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marta, for that presentation. There are several things that's new to some of us. Why Lester will show his presentation now, and then we will go into some questions.
Sure. Just a second. So here we are. Okay. So Teresa, friends in CANTO and all around, thanks again for the invitation. It's always a pleasure for Facebook and for myself to be involved in events with you guys. I would like to say that I would also love to be enjoying the Caribbean scene in these events, but unfortunately we will certainly be able to do that in the future. And I look forward to be again in physical events with you guys. But for now, let's use the tools that actually connectivity and technology offer us to be together. And I wanted to discuss a bit in relationship and also in parallel to what Marta was saying. I mean, certainly the development of and advancements of new technologies, when we consider that the 5G ecosystem it's close to be deployed in the Caribbean, in the region, and in the world in general. It also always raises the question of what's happening with the rest of the connectivity in our countries, and what's going on with what companies as Facebook and others can do regarding connecting the unconnected. So as we work together with DSA and others to promote unlicensed spectrum to be able to further all these applications and cases that Marta mentioned and we will be discussing following, I also want to turn you guys to remember that we still need to do a lot of work regarding connecting the unconnected here in the Caribbean and elsewhere. And for that purpose, in order to quantify the benefit that we can do, and when I say we, I mean the whole industry, the ecosystem together, regulators, associations, of course, companies, operators, internet companies. We would like to, we wanted to address what was the impact of that possible cooperation, and what was the impact of the projects and initiatives that we can move forward. So we commissioned NERA Economic Consulting to do a white paper around these questions. And I think we have some interesting results that I would like to share with you now. Results for the whole Latin and Caribbean region, but that I'm certain that we can interpolate and extrapolate to give us an idea of what these impacts could be, particularly in the Caribbean countries. So let me go first through the through NERA's paper, and then I would like to finish with some related issues around what Marta was mentioning about 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi and unlicensed spectrum in the 5G arena. So the paper that NERA performed work for us, it started by assessing what most of us already know. So although the region is broadly covered by especially mobile access, we still lack a good quality of mobile and for that matter also fixed connectivity in the speeds and quality that most of our people would need or would like to have. Our rural population still have low internet coverage in that sense. And speeds are low in the region for what we require. Most of the the services that will be offered through 5G, they certainly require higher speeds than the ones we have on average in the region. And something very interesting for Latin America and the Caribbean is that SMEs offer a lot of the jobs that people perform every day, and of course with the corresponding impact in GDP. And a lot of those projects, of those companies, of those entrepreneurs do not have or lack good connectivity, do not have access to good and quality in connectivity. So also the reasons for this have been greatly discussed. Infrastructure deployment is expensive. We lack structural backbones or infrastructure at the regional and national levels. In some of the countries, competition is not as strong as it should be to promote lower prices and more services. The economic profile of our region still makes it for some of the services to not be affordable. We don't have good connectivity in the school systems. As I was mentioning, a lot of business, especially SMEs, do not have high levels of adoption of ICT services. We haven't developed great e-government strategies or services, and there's still low trust on digital services for the usage of certain applications. So and the paper also mentions, of course, but I would like to make this brief comment on what we as Facebook are doing regarding connectivity in the region, and then further in the paper, NERA quantifies or tries to quantify these efforts. And as I have discussed this before in some of our events and discussions, I would like to go a bit fast, but you guys may remember the project, now a reality, and the partnership we have with Telefónica in Peru through the creation of Internet para Todos, which is a mobile wholesale company. This example of project is our flagship project in LATAM that we call Rural Access. This Rural Access brand, if I can say that, is how we classify this type of projects where we seek to extend the reach and speed of broadband services in rural areas. And well, in the case now, or the example now in the region is of course what we have in Peru. We hope we can continue to have more examples. Express Wi-Fi, it's a combination of software and technological applications to offer Wi-Fi hotspots in rural areas and remote areas. We have partnered in these projects with satellite operators and some WISPs around the region. You guys know here in the Caribbean about another of our software offers, which is Free Basics. Free Basics provides basic access to internet services and/or content. We partner with operators for this. I will come back to this at the end to do a couple of comments. And regarding all the efforts on infrastructure, open source infrastructure, we are members and promoters of the Telecom Infra project that a big group of operators, companies, universities, and anyone interested in collaborating in open source infrastructure deployments, development, and application. And the other part that I think it's very relevant and it's rarely commented, it's the work and investment that Facebook goes through regarding its own infrastructure. So as you know, and this is something that I think it's important to mention. It's sometimes mentioned that we rely solely in the infrastructure of the MNOs. I mean, we certainly appreciate the partnership that we have with the mobile operators and with the operators in general, but we do participate and invest in our own infrastructure or in parts of the infrastructure of the networks that we use, mostly here in Latin America and the Caribbean, through POPs at IXPs and caches in the premises of the operators. In the particular case of Latin America and referring to the South Cone, we do have also a submarine cable project in deployment. You might have heard the Malbec cable that goes from Brazil to Argentina that should be operational in the months to come. So, and going back to the paper, what NERA tried to do is to quantify the impacts of this investment. What would happen in the region if we could generalize and take these projects to the rest of the countries? And here, two important issues to mention. First, NERA find it possible to quantify at least the variables that we have at our left regarding ICT output through an increase in broadband coverage, the increase in internet penetration, the impact of lower prices, as well as more general macroeconomic impacts like job creation, GDP growth, GDP per capita, consumer staples increase. They, however, identified other very relevant impacts that they were not able to quantify. I think this is particularly relevant for this discussion and for the Caribbean because we do have, and I was going to mention that in a couple of more slides, but we have very interesting cases of free basics applications here in the Caribbean with a couple of operators in a number of countries. And although we were not able, or NERA was not able to quantify the impact, it's clear that there's a benefit of internet penetration through this particular application. All other impacts not able to quantify, but that are recognized are the increases in internet speed and quality, that increases the usage, high quality drives increase in take-up rates, productivity, etc. A higher broadband competition, of course, that has benefited prices and other arenas that NERA was not able to quantify. The possibility of SMEs to have more connectivity. They take some of these projects out of the informal economy into the formal economy with the corresponding impact in revenues and job creation, and other interesting variables as local content production and media pluralism. They were also identified as impacts and benefits. So, again, on what was able to be quantified and on the projects that are currently deployed in the region. As I mentioned, and you know, there's this Internet para Todos project. I don't want to call it project anymore because it's a reality, but Internet para Todos as a company and as a partnership or as the product of a partnership that we had with Telefonica and a couple of development banks in the region. So what Internet para Todos does, as you know, it is a mobile wholesaler in rural Peru, and it seeks to cover 6 million people in Peru in the following couple of years. So well, I can say it's not part of this of the presentation per se, but it started operations last year. It has a bit more than a year in operation, and it's doing its good effort of increasing and taking more people in coverage and in access, and they're right in line with complying with the 6 million in 3 years. So. What the paper does is it calculates what and let me, I'm gonna take the I had the screens with looking at you guys on the side where I have the table, so I just I need to move it a bit. So as you can see, what NERA is doing, and here I have a sample of the countries that were analyzed. They tried to extrapolate what is happening in Peru with Internet para Todos. What would happen with the rest of the countries if there was a similar project applied? And again, I think it's fair to mention, I mean, and it's not only a Facebook project. If we together as an industry, governments, associations, etc., could come up with the appropriate tools and projects to launch this type of initiatives. So NERA calculates that projects like this could extend broadband coverage to 30 million people, almost 30 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean. Oh, sorry, let me go to the next. Yes, something similar, and sorry, I need to move again the screen. Something similar with the Wi-Fi Express projects. So as you know, this is this solution that I mentioned of Wi-Fi hotspots in rural and remote areas. Currently, this solution promoted by, of course, by Facebook, but together with satellite operators, I would like to mention Hughes, Viasat, and some others in the near future. We at current time, we have around 2,700 hotspots in Brazil and Mexico. The project has extended to Colombia and Peru, and probably to other countries in the near future. So with the same methodology of extrapolating these projects to the rest of the countries, NERA estimates that we could get an additional 500,000 high-speed broadband connections, with the particularity that we are talking of remote of connections in remote rural places, with the benefits that of course entails. Oh, sorry. In this part, I mean, I don't want to go a lot through the technical stuff, but as you can imagine, as you know, Facebook investing in its own infrastructure through POPs and caches, and even in the case of submarine cables, of course, that has an impact on not only on the quality of connectivity, but that has an impact in costs. So NERA assessed that these investments in connectivity in LATAM, including of course the Caribbean countries, will decrease international connectivity costs by $440 million, I'm sorry, 440 billion dollars. And well, of course, that impact includes the cable, the submarine cable, that will also have an impact in decreasing prices. In this particular case, goes to the region of the South Cone where the investment is being deployed. So very fast, I mentioned the direct benefits or impacts on ICT data, but also in the overall economic impact. We're talking about an additional 27 billion on GDP per year for the region because of these investments, the creation of 178,000 new jobs, permanent jobs in the economy for Latin and the Caribbean, being able to generate 500 million dollars per year of additional consumer surplus, and the potential to enable the increase in internet penetration by up to 12% in Latin America and the Caribbean. And although I think that's important, perhaps you guys are more interested in what we are doing in the Caribbean and what we can do. So at present time, as I mentioned before, our presence with connectivity initiatives in the Caribbean is still small, and I'm certain that in time we will be able to commit and to invest in further projects. But as of today, we do have our application Free Basics available in 7 markets in the region, with 7 different operators. That is not necessarily, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it might be one same operator in different countries and territories in the Caribbean, but maybe part of the same parent company. And as perhaps some of you are aware, we launched quite recently in the second quarter of this year a new version of Free Basics that we call Discover. The great advancement with this is that it has grants access to the users to free access together with the operator, of course, to all the internet. Now it's like a browser that permits access to the whole internet in a light version, without video, without pictures. The difference with Free Basics, that it's operational now in the Caribbean, is that for Free Basics 1, the version we have now, it requires the content owner to generate content compatible with Free Basics. Discover doesn't require that. We are only present now in Peru, here in Latin America, in the Caribbean, and we're looking forward to new launches. And you can be clear that in my view and that of my team, we think this is a solution that should be present in the Caribbean markets. And Express Wi-Fi that I discussed as this partnership with satellites and WISPs around several countries now to take connectivity to remote areas, rural areas. We just launched in Puerto Rico this month. Of course, that's always part of I don't know if a comment and joke that if Puerto Rico being part of the U.S. is also part of Latin America and the Caribbean. But what I can tell you, and I think it's very clear, they share our problems regarding connectivity. They share our visions in many respects, and I think it's a great example of the first project, the first Express Wi-Fi deployment in the Caribbean. So I'm hopeful that we can move forward to other cases soon. That's also something that I think it's something we should push, and we will have as we are assessing other markets. And regarding our own infrastructure, we are the only OTT with a POP in the Caribbean. we have that presence now for quite some time. Also assessing, continuing the work on that area, and we have caches co-located with, I must say, all the operators in the region. Perhaps might be missing some territories or areas, but we are present in a high percentage of the operators in the region. So of course we want to continue building on this table. I would like to see most of the projects in the future present in the Caribbean. That's something that we are pushing, as you guys know, as we have been discussing this previously. What I can say, and I'm actually very happy, is that a year ago this table was half filled. So we are working on that. And just to finish, and I want to do it fast. I wanted to share also this data on a paper that Raul Katz, who is a very recognized academic consultant in the region, and regarding Marta's presentation and comments. As we see, there is a very important economic impact on our investments in infrastructure. We also think there's an important impact in our capacity as an industry, as a society, because we need the help of regulators and the commitment of all the market and associations. We think that if we are able to push this the right balance between licensed and unlicensed spectrum, the availability of spectrum for the future applications that Marta discussed, we could be delivering further benefits and economic impacts to our region. This is data for the US, of course, of the benefits of allowing very low power and low power indoor 6 gigahertz efforts. But you can see the figures, and I'm certain that we could get to eventually to think of the impact that this could have, this policy or these decisions could have in the Caribbean as this industry is able to develop. And just here on the right side of the slide, I wanted to point out again, not quantified by but certainly important impacts that we foresee if we are able to take these projects into fruition. And I think that Marta already mentioned some of them, but I just want to go fast through them. Of course, an impact in GDP because of the increase in the speeds of broadband, additional consumer surplus coming from more usage of spectrum for these services and bands, producer surplus generated for the new Wi-Fi equipment, which Marta mentioned that it's already prepared to be in the market by this Christmas, savings in capital investments by the operators because of the ability of loading traffic to Wi-Fi, broader deployments of IoT devices, savings for companies through new applications of this Wi-Fi for delivering their services. Producer surplus also derived from sales of these new equipments compatible with these technologies, and spillovers in general resulting from, I think, all this, the search and the explosion of this new ecosystem. I wanted to finish with that and thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Lester. Your second to last slide where you mentioned that you're going to do more and more work in the Caribbean is certainly welcome. Music to our Caribbean ears. We start with the first question, and the first question in the chat is for Marta. Were there any relevant outputs from WRC 19 or WRC 15 impacting on the rollout of Wi-Fi 6E? And that question is from Nigel Casimir. Marta?
I think she's muted.
She's muted. I think she has to be muted by the host. Yes.
So I have.
Okay. Did you get the question, or do you want us to go through it one more time?
No, I saw it, Teresa.
Okay,
Thank you very
great.
much. Thank you, Nigel, for the question. So yes, there was a discussion at WRC 19 about the future agenda items for WRC 23. If you allow me, it's better just to make sure I don't make any mistake in explaining the numbers. I will just share my additional information slides that were about it. And so this is the agenda for the, this is agenda item 1.2 for WRC 23. So there was a big discussion about the future of the 6 gigahertz band at WRC 23. There were a lot of requirements, especially from manufacturers, mobile manufacturers, that they wanted to include the 6 gigahertz band for studies on a global basis. At the end, it was decided to study the upper part, the 100 megahertz in the upper part of the band for IMT identification. And from 6425 to 7025 megahertz, it's under study, but just for region 1. If you allow me also to give some context there, during WRC, Europe had decided not to have a future agenda item for IMT, and especially not to have any studies in this band, but that was a requirement mainly from Africa. So at the end, it was decided to study the upper part of the band, but only in region 1. The other regions, region 2 and region 3, decided that they didn't want to have studies for IMT identification in the regions. So basically right now there are studies that might affect the implementation, especially in Africa, because those countries will wait until, most probably they will wait until WRC 23 to know if it is possible to implement, to identify IMT in that portion of the band. And then they will have to make the decision if they want to move forward, and then to that there should be some ecosystem that is not available now, and probably they could have some identification for that band in the future. In our case, we think, and from the DSA perspective, because only region 1 is studying the upper part of the band, we think that regulators in region 2 can move forward, enabling Wi-Fi 6. And indeed, we have the decision of the US, and also even in region 1, UK has decided to release and license access to the lower part of the band. So we still don't know what's going to happen in those studies, but we do know that it will take a while to finish those studies. And if you compare that with the Wi-Fi ecosystem that is available now and that can provide gigabits throughputs in the very short term, we think that it's reasonable to move in the direction of Wi-Fi 6. And one final comment, if you allow me to, one of the results, of the key results of WRC 19 was a success in terms of more identification for IMT. So in total, the conference identified 1725 gigahertz of spectrum for IMT. And before WRC, there were already 1.9 gigahertz of spectrum that was identified for IMT. So, and from this number that was identified, 14.75 gigahertz are harmonized worldwide. So we think that it's important to now proceed to assign that spectrum. So we think in terms of identification, there is a lot of spectrum that has already been identified in low, medium, high frequency bands. Mm-hmm. And so we think that the next move for regulators should be to assign that spectrum to enable all the 5G promise in terms of microwaves and different frequency bands. And in parallel, to allow the access, the unlicensed access to the 6 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi 6.
Okay, so some people, I'm not sure if it's the slide, but the slide was not shown clearly. So Agri, to answer your question, we will make the presentations available after the event. So back to the second question is also for you, and it's from Albert Daniel, and it deals with coexisting with legacy systems. Can you also address that, and also the collaboration, if there's any, between Wi-Fi 6 developers and the Security and Stability Advisory Committee of ICANN?
Thank you, Albert, for that question. Unfortunately, the DSA is more based on the advocacy part for spectrum management. And here we're talking about higher layers in terms of the standard itself. So I think, and I might send this question to the folks from Wi-Fi Alliance who are more involved in the certification process. What I have heard is that in terms of security, Wi-Fi 6 is much more secure than the previous generations, and it has a mandatory, some mandatory security protocols that were not, that didn't exist in the past. So unfortunately, I don't have enough background in terms of the security protocol, so I cannot give you further details.
Okay, great. So, Dr. Suarez, another question for you. It's from Angela, and she indicated that you mentioned that 5G technology spectrum is non-profit. Could you expand on that, please?
Yeah.
For example, yes.
Yeah, I apologize if at some point I made you understand that 5G is non-for-profit. That's absolutely not the case. I mentioned that DSA is a non-for-profit alliance.
Okay.
But maybe if I can mention about her further part, it's like here we're talking about unlicensed spectrum access, and there is a relationship of the two of them. One is you don't pay for the spectrum in the unlicensed access framework, and then because you remove that barrier, you have a lot of new opportunities and use cases, but it doesn't mean that it will affect the other deployments, because it would be, there is like a conjunction of the two use cases, and both are important. Also, if you think it from the user's perspective, for example, I would imagine in my house, if I would have a lot of these augmented reality devices in the future, let's say in a few years, I wouldn't imagine to have a SIM card for each of them, because that would make them more expensive, and that would make my data consumption more expensive. So we would need to have those unlicensed devices connecting to a central router or to a central mobile terminal. And then I would have all those additional things that are unlicensed, but it doesn't mean that they are not contributing to the ecosystem.
Good. So the first question for Lester deals with payments. Lester, will the region be able to benefit from Facebook, such as payments similar to YouTube in the near future? I guess what this this person is trying to ask is if, like YouTube, Facebook users can start earning revenue from the number of, I'm not going to say likes or anything, but can they start earning revenue when they reach a certain number of views and stuff like that, so in a similar manner to YouTube?
Okay. Yeah. So this is not really my area, but what I would try to say is, I mean, for Facebook in particular, I mean, the Blue app, the way it makes revenue is through advertising, and however, as you guys know, there's a lot of content now, and this is growing very fast, and there's content from news, from news outlets, from maybe in the future, I don't know if at the moment some videos. So I don't want to say TV shows per se, but that's the idea. I mean, content, video content, etc. And I do think that's the I mean. The way the industry it works, it's going towards there. I mean, for instance, in Instagram, you guys know there are people that do a lot of money being influencers and advertising both inside and outside the platform. So If you ask me, and yet again, I'm not the perhaps the right person to answer this question in the company, I would say I think that's the track, that's the path that the industry as a whole is going through. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I'm not very acquainted with what YouTube is specifically doing in the Caribbean with that, but I can see that's something natural to see in the evolution of the services.
Okay, I guess what we're looking for is some Facebook entrepreneurs from the region. Lester, staying with you. This question is from Nigel again. There are several IXPs that were set up in the Caribbean countries, many of which are not functioning as effectively as intended. As IXPs can be considered critical infrastructure, does Facebook have any initiatives to support the development of IXPs in the region? And can you give us some examples of success if there are any?
Yeah, so the way this is managed, and I think that's something very important that I wanted to, I mean, that the paper tries to convey, and that I want to mention. I mean, as you know, we do make infra investments for our own traffic or our own services. They are made first of all with the idea of offering our services more efficiently, rapidly, for granting a better experience to the user. However, and that's the interesting part of the paper, these investments have an economic impact way beyond that, and that's a point that we're trying to make. So, and as I mentioned, we do have at current time one IXP, one popular IXP in the Caribbean, particularly in Puerto Rico, and I mean, if we think that, and that's the way it's organized, that mostly serves the northern part of the Caribbean, of the region, and thinking about the efficiency of our service, I would say, and I think I cannot say more. I do think, Nigel, the question is if we will continue to have presence in other IXPs or promote IXPs. I would say, as our services are growing and require that infrastructure, we certainly will promote or will do that. So in examples, again, the main driver for having POPs or any own infra investment, let's give the greatest example, which are submarine cables. The main driver is the development or the deployment of our own network and services. So at least in the region, I think we are growing pretty importantly in that. Malbec is certainly a very good example. I think that it recognizes that there's important traffic that need, and users that need lower latencies, better quality, the opportunity for other operators also to use that infrastructure to make it more efficient. So I think those are good examples. I would certainly hope to be able to give those examples around the Caribbean region in the near future. I cannot say more, but believe me that in this view of making more efficient the usage of our own traffic and network and to better the experience of our users, we'll always be looking for the way to do that through efficient and appropriate infra investments. And in that sense, of course, that also applies to the Caribbean and the traffic and quality of service we want to offer to our users here.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Nigel. I have a question for Marta. Marta, when can we expect to see Wi-Fi 6 in use? Just a year, by the end of this year, next year, when?
Well, according to the numbers from Wi-Fi Alliance, next year there will be more than 300 million of devices in the US market. And the first devices of Wi-Fi 6E will be on the market by Christmas. The first Wi-Fi 6E devices are already available. So some people might already, those that have the last terminals, the last smartphones, they might already have Wi-Fi 6, but they, for sure, they won't be able to use all the capabilities, and especially Wi-Fi 6E after the regulations are in place. So the answer is, in the very, very short term, and by Christmas this year, you could, I mean, those countries that have the regulation could have Wi-Fi 6E equipment in their hands.
Okay, so we are just out of time, but I have two questions that I will wrap up in one for you, Lester. What are some specific opportunities available to Caribbean operators, and how can they be accessed? And is Facebook willing, how can Facebook and CANTO work together to develop the digital ecosystem in the region?
Yeah, sure. So regarding the first part of the question, we are always in the lookout for crystallizing opportunities and partnerships. Something I did not mention specifically, but I guess you guys were able to see it was implicit, is that as Facebook does not operate networks, all of the initiatives and work that we do it through partnerships with operators. So if you ask me what opportunities are there for telecom operators in general with Facebook in the region, I would say that as we look for these opportunities in the market, there are certainly new opportunities for operators to be part of this project. So what I would ask you, Teresa, if there's anyone interested in talking to our people regarding a possible partnership of a type of project, being it Express Wi-Fi or any other initiative, someone would like to explore the possibility of deploying together with Facebook, they can contact me, and I can make the appropriate connections with the business development and engineering people to look into the feasibility of those operations or partnerships. And regarding the second part of your question, I would say that we are exploring the possibility of being more involved with CANTO in different capacities. Certainly participating in your events and fora. That's a very important part. And as I have been discussing with you and David, we are studying the possibility of having even more a more deep commitment. Eventually thinking of a more direct participation. Certainly, this has been a complex year for many reasons, but that's something that's still in the pipeline for me and my team, and we hope in time we can continue escalating our level of involvement and commitment with the association.
Excellent, good news, because once the region digital ecosystem is developed, I'm sure it will spur innovation and economic development. So folks, that's it for Lester and Marta. We're out of time, but if you stay with me a little longer, I just have two announcements to make. CANTO and Sonova have partnered to offer an online Caribbean-focused spectrum policy management course, which will give you postgraduate accreditation from the University of Strathclyde. For more information, please contact the Secretariat. In addition, you must have seen our flyers or information on CANTO Connect. It's the first virtual networking event in the Caribbean. Come and experience the things you experience in any face-to-face CANTO meeting. Good content, excellent content, cutting-edge technology, and social events where we bring out the culture of the region. So that's it from us for now. Thank you. Remember, we can work from anywhere. But stay safe and be connected with CANTO Conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.